sounds so beautiful. I don't want to kill the engine, man. That's fantastic. All right. Oh, I just want to let it idle. Okay. Because they can't just make that a little bit longer so that it will work on more than one kind of car. Or, God forbid, actually have a different kit for the Type 3 installation. Wouldn't that be weird? I thought I should start by explaining the fact that I'm a little bit of a split personality. So some of you may have already figured out that I have a tendency to want to have a more stock appearance on the car, if nothing else at all. And I genuinely enjoy fully learning and practicing the ability to utilize the old systems like the points and condenser ignition system. It's fascinating to me that people came up with such an ingenious design so many years ago, and it's a privilege to be able to continue to utilize that old system and be able to go through the process of troubleshooting it and making it work, and I enjoy that very much. And I recently released a video where I did a restoration on some horns that were believed to not be working. And one of the people commented, and I just absolutely loved this, and he essentially said how much he appreciated seeing someone actually fixing something as opposed to just slapping in a new part. And I thought, man, yeah, some of these people definitely get me. And so I thought to myself, well, what can I do to, alienate this person as quickly as possible? So all kidding aside, that is actually what I'm going to be doing. I found myself in a unique situation, which allowed me to obtain a Ignitor points elimination system from Pertronix, and I'm going to utilize this thing, and I'm excited about it. So, yes, I do enjoy the way old things are done, and I gravitate toward, learning these old ways and understanding them better. But I'm very much so intrigued by technology. I am actually employed in the industry. I think that it can be taken too far, and I think we have taken it too far. You have cars that your average person can't even work on anymore. I think that's a problem. But here we just have, something that is a little simple electronic device that allows us to take away a lot of the problems that are associated with an old points system. And so I look forward to putting this to use. And, interestingly, some years ago, not quite 30 years ago, I had one of the predecessors of this system, one of the early systems that they produced in a car of mine. But we didn't even have the internet back then, and I was much younger, and so I just took that system and just tossed it into the distributor and kind of hoped for the best, and I had a bad experience, what I would consider at the time to be a bad experience, where the system just failed me on the freeway, rush hour traffic in the morning, going to work. Bad situation. But having the internet and the ability to do research more efficiently, and all of that, I went ahead and I said, okay, well, you're going to get this system here, and of course Pertronix suggests, well, you're probably going to want to use our coil, and so I decided, yes, I should go ahead and use their coil. Now, is it, super important that it actually be Pertronix brand coil? No, it really isn't. The most important part is that you are getting a coil that has the proper resistance, and in this case, it's a 0.32 ohm resistance that is, designed to work properly with the difference of an electronic points eliminator system, as opposed to a stock coil. And so I got that as well. And I went ahead and continued to do my research. And of course, you know, Pertronix says, well, you're going to want to use these spark plug wires. And I thought, oh, come on now. Do I really need to use these spark plug wires? Well, as it turns out, I did my research. Oh, I got to reach here. And it is important that you use, and you know, I went ahead and got Pertronix. It wouldn't have been important that they be Pertronix, but I thought might as well. The big difference here is, and this is important more than just for installing the system. So the spark plug wires that you're going to find in a points-based system are going to be a solid core design. And that is what you want to use when using a points, you know, an old points and condenser-based system. But in the case of the electronic ignition, you really want, I forget, either suppression or spiral system, spark plug wires. And so I got the Pertronix, which are a spiral. But it's very important that you don't try to mix these. So these are not what you want to use in your points and condenser-based system. So I've seen plenty of videos out there where guys, you know, will show putting these, you know, into their Volkswagen and put it to use, and great. And there's the discussion about how, oh, well, you can just, you know, keep your points and condenser in your car if this should ever fail you. Okay, yes, absolutely. But it's very important to consider the fact that you also need to keep the older style of spark plug wire in the car as well, because it is not good for that system to use the wrong kind of wires. So all that being said, you know, amazing, I get a little bit older and I actually read things and you know, make sure that I understand them before I just jump right in and do them. So I've got my electronic ignition, very simple little package here. I've got my coil, I've got my spark plug wires. I'm going to put all that to use, but I did not buy the Ignitor 3 product that fits the vacuum advanced distributor that's in my car presently, that I just went to all the effort to make sure it was going to work well. I bought the one that it's going to fit into an 009 distributor. And well, if you've been watching any of my other videos, you know that I do have not one, not two, but 3 options for 009 distributors. And let's go ahead and, you know, make the comment. Yes, there's more than one 009, but we're talking about the, you know, JF4, let's see, 0231178009 distributor specifically. Part of my thought process here is that it's also going to lend itself well toward, at some point, coming up with a system that I can use outside of the distributor that will allow me to manipulate the timing more granularly. So, you know, your timing is manipulated in these with a centrifugal or centrifugal, whatever you like to say, system here. So, you know, as your you know, distributor shaft spins faster, these plates, you know, spin around and it actually adjusts the positioning of where, you know, the points are. And it's a fairly fixed rate that it does it. Whereas electronically, you can come in and you can say, hey man, you know, right here I want this much advance, and over here I want this much advance, you know, through the RPM range. And, you know, again, there's this place where, yes, electronics and you know, modern advancements really can be a major benefit. So for now, I'm just going to be happy to have, you know, this system. At some point later, I'll come in and actually lock out the mechanical advance on this and come up with an external system that controls the advance. But for now, we'll be happy with this. Now, one of the problems that I have is, okay, well, I've got 3 009s, but man, this one right here, oh, it doesn't have a lot of, in fact, no play in the shaft, but oh, it's tight to spin. And I'm not necessarily, you know, looking forward to the idea of like tearing it all the way down, pulling the shaft out and doing all that stuff, figuring out why and fixing that. I've got this other distributor. Let's see here. Is this? Yeah. Yeah, that one's got some play in the shaft. and this one doesn't. Yeah, that's nice and tight. And so what I'm gonna do is go through this. Might as well go ahead and clean it up. I mean, geez, that could look better, you know, as long as I've got it out and I've got the time, go ahead and clean that up, make it look a little bit better, make sure it's nice and clean inside, make sure I've got grease and oil in the right places. And then I will slap in the new igniter, toss it in the car, and see what it gives us. So that's what's coming up next. All right, so I went ahead, took this apart, did some cleaning. You might be able to tell that it looks a whole lot cleaner on the outside, but it's also a whole lot cleaner on the inside. And a lot of that's pretty straightforward stuff. I used some acetone with some paper towels and some Q-tips, and I used some quad-aught steel wool, even a file in a couple of places. None of that's all that interesting, but what was interesting is, you know, I've got 3 of these distributors, and one that I had it in my mind has not yet been taken apart, and so I used that as my example of how to put this plate back into position. And the way it's set up, the plate with this, what should we call, however that plate, you know, this part here that that the screw from the clips goes into to hold it into position looks a little different than that one. And the other distributor has that side over here where the notch exists in this, where your cap locks into position. And so I put it together that way the first time through, and started to, you know, just look at what it would look like to have the igniter in place there, and realize something was wrong. And so how you can tell if it's wrong is when you go to put your points in, of course you've got this, you know, little nub sticking out here, and that has to go into that hole right there on the plate. And when you do that, make sure that gets down into that hole where it's supposed to, so that you know it's oriented properly. All right. What we can see is that our points are not blocking this square hole. And if you had this thing flipped around 180 degrees like I did, your points would be blocking that square hole, and thus obviously quite wrong. So I fixed that, and now we are basically ready to go ahead and put these in. So without further ado, let's make that happen. So with the previous generation of igniter, and I'm not sure if it's 1 and 2 or just 1, there was a magnetic sort of a cap kind of thing that would fit down over the lobes of your distributor shaft here, and that was what assisted in having the Hall effect sensor utilized. There is not one of those with this system. So what you see is what it takes to put this together. These are going to wind up going on the ends once I get these wires to the correct length for my application. But basically it's just these 3 screws, this plate right here, and this module that are utilized in replacing your points and condenser. So we start with this little plate here, and they went ahead and designed in this little nub sticking out here, which has to go into the same hole where your standard point system would, which helps you to make sure that you've got it lined up properly. And then we have this bugle head, Phillips head screw here that we will use to lock this plate into position if we can, you know, not be a spaz. Get that locked in nice and tight. All right, so that's what that looks like. And now we just take our module here, and I'll show you here. You know, there's sort of 3 holes on that plate that I just put in, 2 of which are smaller than the third one, and those are the 2 holes that we'll be utilizing. So I'm going to just sort of put this in a position loosely and get one of the holes kind of lined up there and drop one of these shoulder bolts, is what I'm going to call them. Shoulder screws, whatever, right down into position here, and just kind of get that started, make it snug. And then, you know, there's a little bit of you know, play here, and so we're just gonna kind of get that close to the right position. It'll probably move on us, but might as well start with it close to the right position. And then I'll just drop this screw down into this other hole and snug that down. And once I've got it snug, I'll go ahead and go a little bit tighter because they're both snug now. All right, I think, yeah, that's just about where we want it to be. So just like that. I think we're just going to be going this nice short, straight, direct route through. Seems to me that makes the most sense. Less likely to have something go terribly, terribly wrong inside. So we'll just kind of feed these wires through. And the one thing that I really wonder what's going on, why they would do it this way. So you look at this boot, you know, it's a standard, well, I shouldn't say standard, but it's designed to be a boot that goes through a circular hole. Well, what shape is that? It's a square hole, right? And so when we look at our, you know, old condenser, you know, wiring setup here, this has got a square plug. We're going to be putting a round plug into a square hole. Okay, I guess that's what we'll do. So I've got this very small tipped flathead screwdriver that actually at one point or another, I'm fairly certain I actually ground to an even smaller tip for a specific purpose. And I'm just gonna have to be very, very careful because that darn thing is, you know, practically a blade at this point, and I don't want to go cutting this rubber plug as I'm trying to work it into here. But let's see, we'll just kind of start by pushing the plug through from the back side. I just can't help but wonder why they would make this plug for a circular hole. Little by little. Okay, I think we're almost there. Just trying to be as careful as I can be to not ruin the boot or, you know, snag a wire, either one. I think I've managed to keep from totally destroying it, yet it wasn't looking real beautiful there at the end. So, you know, we've got it through. I would definitely suggest, if you're doing this, to begin by pushing, you know, this outer part of the boot through at the bottom side of that square hole first, so that when you're getting the last bit out, you can just, you know, have this lovely access right at the top here to push from the inside. That would have made it a lot easier, I think. But yeah, it went in. All is good. So now I'm just gonna kind of gently tug these wires. Oh, yeah, they move real nice and easy. And get the length correct here. Why do I need to make that sound for this to work properly? I don't think that's important. Yeah, some reason I do it. So I think that's pretty good. We'll accept that. And yeah, so I think now it's time to just go ahead and slap this thing together, take it outside, put it on the car. Very exciting. Well, I decided to get started off camera a little bit just to see what would be possible, and determined quite definitively that there's no way I'm going to be able to move my coil over to this location where sometimes you will see them located. It seems like that may have been a stock location. Nobody really wants to build things for Type 3s. They just want to have a universal kit, and the wire that goes between the distributor and the coil is so freaking short, absolutely no possible way to get over there. It's going to be difficult to make it work to get over to here. I'm not really sure exactly how that's going to route. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my existing distributor is in the top dead center position for cylinder number 1. All right, so this is our number 1 cylinder. As long as I set it up to what number 1 is currently, if I determine that we're 180 degrees out, well, it's going to be real easy to correct that. It'll just be 180 degrees out. So, all right, so yeah. Okay, so yeah, even the line on the distributor, the mark on the distributor where number 1 would be, is over where number 3 cylinder is. And I know they always say, don't pull the plug wires, blah, blah. But when you know where it all needs to go, that's kind of a tip to give to people who don't really know how to figure out for themselves where these all belong. Get my 10mm wrench. So one thing I reminded myself of last time I was in here changing out distributors is that if your fuel pump is going to stay in place, there's really no way to avoid having to twist your distributor out of time to be able to get it out. 13 mil. All right. And then I can just distributor clamp nut. This should be at least close enough to get us going with respect to timing. And so I'm not gonna tighten this up completely. I'm gonna tighten it up to where I can still twist this, but just not too easily. All right. At the top here. All right, these two are the exact same length, but that one is slightly longer. So there's your number 1. Yeah, I think I know what's happening. All right. my plugs need to have the caps put back onto them. So I'm going to go get those. So, turns out I couldn't find my caps. So I went to the store and bought plugs so that I can pull the caps off and put them onto my plugs. Apparently my mixture hasn't been great this whole time. Make sure they're gapped well. All right, having had replaced all the spark plugs, it is now time to hook up some spark plug wires. There we go, there's one. Make sure the little cap is pushed down into position. That's an important step, of course. So what I'm referring to is this cap, which is supposed to plug the hole that you're going into so that air doesn't just rush right through it when you're trying to push all your air cooling over your head. So once I get it into position, I push this thing down and make sure that it's in position up against the engine tin. Lovely. All right. So it goes clockwise 1, 4, 3, 2. So 2 will go here. Let's go ahead and get that down and into position there. And go ahead and get number 3 here. All right, so again, 1, 4, 3. So I'm dealing with number 3 right now, so we'll I think I'm gonna go ahead and actually completely undo this. Would have preferred if that hadn't happened. All right, plan B. My goodness. So insane. Like just, if it's going to be a universal fit, make sure that it's actually universal. There are people who want to put this kit on a type 3.
Well, there are several ways I could have decided to handle this problem, but this one involved items I had in my garage and could get the car running again by the next day.
So this is what I've come up with. Because they couldn't have been bothered to make this an actual universal kit, and this cable is too short, this is not what I tend to think of as a long-term solution. All right. Last time I had this apart, I cleaned these up with sandpaper real good, so they should be still capable of making a good connection. Now, I do have a little bit of an issue in that I have an extra positive side connection that needs to be made to the coil here, so I'm going to whip something up to put both of these in onto one. And I'm probably going to do something that is definitely going to be temporary, but just, you know, just get them hooked to one and then worry about it later. I would... Quick shameless plug. I don't know what's shameless about it. I'm not making any money on the deal, but I had a buddy turn me onto this Jacari wire stripper, and it is fantastic. I've had several different kinds of wire strippers over the years. Well, I thought that was real neat when I first got it, but none of them wind up doing all that well long term. This thing is absolutely brilliant. And so, like, really, I don't even know why I hold on to these. It's hard to throw things away from me. And these for my crimping, love these. You know, I just use the front of this thing. Never use any of this or any of this either. Just crimping. So, there that is. And, you know, feel free to comment about how ridiculous this is. And, you know, I've got 12 volts just freaking sitting out there, you know, ready to be hit by something. It's not going to get hit by something, but I get it. I don't intend to leave it that way long term. Just want to get this thing working, and then I will come back to making things right. All right, just kind of giving it another look over here to make sure that I'm not missing something painfully obvious, and I don't believe that I am. All right, got the cap in place. I think we're just about ready to start this bad boy up. Well, moment of truth. And the truth is no go. So let's just make sure I didn't do anything super dumb, like leaving the rotor out. No, didn't do that. I don't want to jump to the conclusion that I've got my wires wrong, but that's, I think, the most likely. I'll test some voltages and stuff first. 1206, so we're getting voltage like we need. Just kind of making sure that my wires are still connected, and they are. My fuel shut off and my choke. Not that the choke really matters, but the fuel shut off valves sure do. So, assuming that I'm correct, and I think I am, it just kind of seems to make sense. I believe that all I need to really do here is just swap 1 for 3 and 2 for 4. So 1, 4, 3, this will be 2. Yeah. Should be absolutely marvelous, because that's a word that people use these days. All right. I think about ready to test it again. All right, so what wound up happening is that the distributor actually kind of came up and I'll just show the distributor shaft basically not making connection with the drive gear down in the crankcase. So after pushing that down in nice and solidly and realizing that the distributor is a whole lot looser than I realized it was, I just sort of put it in the basic position where I thought it should be based on my memory of kind of where number 3 cylinder actually should be firing. And obviously I am not quite right there. So I'm just gonna give this a little bit of a twist. I'm thinking more clockwise. So I'm gonna give it just a little. All right, that's just a little bit, and we'll see if that does any better. Or possibly worse. All right, let's try. We'll go back. Okay, a little bit more. Let's just see. Silly guy sometimes. Now that I'm getting spark, I think I can take my spark tester out of the equation. We don't need to have that little dude affecting our results, now do we? Let's see what happens. Be that guy, but wow, this is definitely all kinds of difference. It's amazing. Hey guys. Yeah, definitely more power. Definitely started easier. It just feels smoother the entire time, you know, through the whole range. Obviously the shifting itself isn't what I'm talking about, maybe not obviously, but the point where you're switching from, you know, the RPM that you're dropping from to get into that next gear up, it just smooth. All right, well, hopefully you enjoyed watching me do this fun stuff to my car. Feel free to like, subscribe, share, do all those fun things, and go out there and have some fun of your own. Well, as a little bonus here, I happened to need to get onto the freeway today. First time since I put in the Pertronix, and man, it's just running so fantastic. I felt really confident running slightly higher speed than I really have in the past. I was up at 70 miles an hour at one point and felt just fine about it. And come to a stop after getting off the freeway, and instead of having the engine running real high, you know, and all this, you know, it just returns to that nice, steady, low RPM level that it wants to idle at, and just doing great. So couldn't be more pleased.